Thank you so much for being on the programme. It's great to have you here.
It's good to see you, Sophie.
So you, of course, are running to be leader of the Conservative Party. Now, if you're going to be a leader, then there's an awful lot of things that come up that you have to respond to. So I thought I'd do the interview slightly differently, because often that's when, I guess, you find out the kind of leader you want to be in the sort of responses. So there's just a few things that I'd like to get your sort of take on. And the first one is some work that we've been doing with our Westminster accounts team at Sky on Keir Starmer, which has found that he's received more freebies than any other MP since becoming Labour leader. Is that fine, as long as MPs are transparent about it?
Well, I think it's important to be transparent. I think that's the first thing. But the second thing is you've got to ask who's inviting him and why. I mean, I'm sure he's recorded everything appropriately. We've just found out he's maybe been a little bit late on one declaration, but it seems like he's reporting things properly. The question is, why are people offering him so many freebies?
Because he's, lead the opposition, right?
Nice guy.
And then Prime Minister.
Yeah. I mean...
MPs get offered things a lot, though, don't they?
Yeah, but a lot of us decline politely. I've been invited to many different events, missed different moments, and, you've got to make a decision. Does it look right? Does it smell right? Does it pass the sniff test, frankly? And to be number one in that ranking does raise some questions.
Do you think it passes the sniff test, then?
I think it raises questions.
Party leaders often, of course, have to deal with foreign affairs. In some ways, it's the hardest part of the job. And, of course, you've got a background in security as well. Now, we've seen pages, we've seen handheld radios exploding across Lebanon. Hezbollah has blamed Israel. Assuming it was them, were the attacks justified?
Look, I'm not going to get into a debate as to who may or may not have caused these incidents to happen. It's pretty shocking, isn't it, to find out, though, that the Iranian ambassador has a Hezbollah pager, and yet they claim to have absolutely no relationship with the organisation at all. It's pretty clear that the network of Hezbollah, which, let's remember, is one of the world's biggest drug dealing and child trafficking networks, has such a grip not only on a country, Lebanon, a country which I lived in for 2 years in the late 90s, but also has such a strong connection to Iran. Iran is, frankly, now become one of the biggest drug-dealing powers in the world, and through its Muta'a network, through its child bride network, is effectively engaged in the active trafficking of children for sexual exploitation.
I mean, I can see you kind of sidestepping the question slightly on the attacks being justified.
Well, the reason I am is because you're asking me to blame a country that I don't know whether or not it was responsible, and I...
But what about just the attacks themselves? Because we know that people have been killed, 12 people killed, including 2 children, 1 and 8-year-old girl. Are these attacks justified?
So I think, first of all, the deaths of children in operation, in any context at all, whether this is an operation or whether it's, something else, which I don't know, is absolutely tragic. But I'm very cautious about laying any blame, because I don't know what the cause was. I don't know what the justification could be, because it's not obvious what's gone behind it.
Are you worried about escalation?
I think you've always got to be worried about escalation in the Middle East. I think it's just one of those things you've got to be aware of, and I'm sure in recent days, if they haven't, they should have, the government will have held Cobra meetings to discuss what's going on in Tehran and to assess what kind of responses the Iranian regime may feel.
You're stopping short of condemning the attacks themselves, though, even though they've killed children.
Sophie, the reason I'm stopping short is because I don't know that they're attacks. You don't know that they're attacks. We don't know that they're attacks.
Well, it's not coincidence, is it, that suddenly these pages have all just exploded?
Well, it may
I'm not a security expert, but that seems a bit far-fetched.
It may not be coincidence, but it may have been triggered by its own organisation. It may have been triggered by something internally going wrong. It may have been triggered by many different things. So it's possible that somebody loaded explosives into these pages, but somebody else triggered them to go off by hacking them or by doing something else. So it's entirely possible that this wasn't an attack, but the two are unconnected.
OK. Let's talk domestic. You're unhappy, very unhappy, about the sentencing of Huw Edwards. Just explain.
That's right. Well, look, I mean, it's clear that an offence of this kind should get a custodial sentence, and I understand that technically a suspended sentence is a custodial sentence, but the reality is, to you and me, it doesn't feel like one, does it? And it's one of the areas that I've been really active on in the 10 years that I've been in politics, 9 years I've been in politics, because child abuse, child violence is just genuinely horrific. This is why I was so proud to champion Tony's Law, named after Tony Hudgell, the young boy who I think you've met as well, who's just a remarkable individual who was so abused by his parents, by his birth parents, that we felt the right thing to do was to change the law to make sure no child after him would receive such light support from the court system, and that their parents would get the same the same sentence as if they'd assaulted an adult. But also, as Security Minister, my responsibility was fighting child sexual exploitation online. And this is a fight I took to Meta and to other different organisations around the world. And so seeing a prominent individual who is clearly, I mean, by the very fact that he's pled guilty, is clearly connected to the sexual exploitation of children through images, and Category A images at that, so the most serious kind. And to see him walk away with a suspended sentence is something that, frankly, cries out, don't you think?
You've written to the Attorney General asking for a review under the unduly lenient sentence scheme. But, of course, they can't do that because he was sentenced in a magistrate's court.
Well,
I mean, it sounds a little bit like you don't understand how the scheme works.
Well, the thing is, Sophie, he's responsible for the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service. The Attorney General is responsible for asking how for answering.
You've asked.
Hang on, let me answer.
You've asked for it for review under the unduly lenient scheme that he doesn't qualify for.
Well, it's absolutely down to the Attorney General to defend the choice of the CPS to bring this to a magistrate's court instead of to bring it to a Crown Court. That's up to him.
Yeah, but that's a completely separate issue. Well, that's a totally separate issue. You've asked for review under the unduly lenient sentence scheme that he doesn't qualify for. I mean, it's a bit embarrassing, isn't it, from a former Home Office Minister?
Sophie, this is clearly the responsibility of the Attorney General. And he can also review an interested party, and the Attorney General is an interested party, can, under the Magistrates Act, ask for a review under the Magistrates' Courts as well.
Not under the unduly lenient sentence scheme,
he can ask for a review. He can ask for
that was a mistake,
he can ask for a review. Look, the point is that this sentence is not appropriate to the crime that Mr. Edwards has pled guilty to.
OK, now I want to talk a bit about your leadership pitch, right?
Yeah.
Can I be totally honest with you? I'm trying to work out where you fit, right? So if you want your kind of classic right-winger, you go Jenrick. If you want centrist, you go Cleverly. If you want kind of wild card, you go Kemi. Where do you fit?
Well, I'm not sure that any of them would like your description.
Yeah, they might not, but, you know, I think that's where most people would put them. Well, where do you put yourself?
Well, I put myself solidly in the centre of the Conservative Party on the common ground that is, frankly, conservatism. That's why I've been pitching on some of the issues that we've spoken about, which is defence and foreign affairs. Obviously, that's an area I've been strong on.
The centre of the Conservative Party or the centre ground?
Well, the centre... I'm running to be a Conservative leader, right? And I'm running to unite the Conservative Party and to unite the country around Conservative values. That's what I'm running for. I'm not running to be the Conservative, candidate for another party. I'm running to be the Conservative leader. I guess,
is there a risk that if you're kind of pitching it right in the middle of ground of the Conservative Party, that you're kind of falling through the cracks a bit? It's not just me trying to work it out. If you Google, is Tom Tugendhat, these are the options that Google comes up with. The first one's actually, is Tom Tugendhat married, which you might be quite happy with. I am, but yes. The other ones, is Tom Tugendhat a One Nation Tory? Is Tom Tugendhat left-wing? Is Tom Tugendhat a Brexiteer? People don't know. They can't work out where you stand. Well, I don't think it's particularly surprising that having spent 2 years keeping the King's secrets and not doing interviews with you... We've done a few interviews, to be fair.
Well, we have, but we did them before. We did them before. We didn't do them much over the last few years. It's not surprising that people aren't quite aware of the work I've been doing. Do you need a clearer pitch, is what I'm saying? Well, I think the pitch is clear. The pitch is that we need to return the Conservative Party to the service of the country. We need to offer leadership to this country because, frankly, we are already straying away from it. This is a government under Labour that is serving itself, not the country. This is a leader who is, as you know, enjoying himself at others' expense, not leading the country. And this is a party that's acting in its own interest, not acting in the national interest. So we need to make sure that the Conservative Party is offering something different, and that's exactly what I'm standing for. Because, frankly, having served this country in various different ways for 25 years, whether in uniform or out of uniform in Parliament, standing up against the dictators that we've discussed in the past in China and Russia and Iran, or more recently, not being on your programme because I've been working to keep us safe from terror and from serious and organised crime. That's different. You backed Liz Truss last time. I stood against both Liz and Rishi. But then you went in and then backed. Well, I was given a choice between two, neither of whom I thought were up to it, and it turns out I was right. Why did you back Liz Truss? Was it because you wanted a job? You thought she was going to win? No, I wasn't offered a job and I didn't ask for a job from either of them, as you can tell by the fact that both of them gave me exactly the same job. So, no, what I did was I looked to the one who was at least having a vision of the future, and to be fair to Liz, that's what she claimed to offer. She then spectacularly failed to deliver it.
You, of course, as you said, you tried to be a leader before. You're now, I have to say, last in the betting when it comes to the last four. Well, why are you putting yourself through it again?
I thought we stopped political betting. I thought political betting was a bad idea.
Why are you... well, no, not from other people. I'm not talking about MPs betting. I'm talking about...
You're not telling me that you've been betting?
I haven't done any betting on this leadership election. I can be very clear about that. Why are you putting yourself through it?
Because I think
What's
it matters.
changed from last time?
Look, I think this country matters. I think it's a fantastic and an amazing place. I think this country offers an extraordinary opportunity of example to the entire world and offers the opportunity to bring prosperity and happiness to the British people. And I think there are issues that really matter and that I can champion. And whether that's on, making sure that we keep our country safe from the issues that we've just raised, or whether it's about bringing reform to the National Health Service so that we make it more accountable to the British people, or whether it's about bringing down taxes, or some of the issues that I championed 2 years ago on making sure that investments made by companies to improve productivity are tax deductible, or whether it's on lowering corporation tax, both issues that I spoke about. Those are issues that I think matter.
You need a moment to turn it around, though, right? Conservative conference, big speech. Can you give me a bit of an insight into your prep? What are you going to do? Are you kind of like masterminding it? Are you going to, rehearsing in the mirror? Are you going to go suit jacket, sleeves rolled up? What's the plan?
You'll have to wait and see, Sophie.
No notes?
You'll have to...
Come on, give us something.
You've heard me give speeches quite often in the past. You heard me give a speech, when was it, 3 or so, 4 years ago, after the fall of Afghanistan. You've heard me giving speeches in various...
This is a bit different, though. Come on, give us a hint.
It is different, but I've already given 3 speeches. Everybody's given 1 for their launch event, but I've given 2 more. 1 on law and order, which you very kindly covered. I've given 1 on public services, which you also covered, because these are important issues that, I think you've got to address. You've got to offer the issues in the British public.
What's your top tip just before a speech, then? Are you like...
Focus.
Coffee... little tipple before?
I don't drink,
sugar.
so I'm afraid I'm sorry about that. But I'm sure that I haven't tried whiskey before a speech, but maybe that's what the Chancellor used to do, isn't it?
It is. Thank you very much indeed.
It's nice to see you.